Hey Calgary, it's Robert the Realtor here. I wanted to take the opportunity in this video today to really explain not just how the market is doing, today, but also how it's shifted and adjusted in the past 5 or 6 years. I can tell you that the interest rate right now is 5%, but what does that actually mean? You got to have some perspective on, well, if it's 5% today, what was it like yesterday? Oh, it was 2%? Well, that makes a big difference. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, from about 2020 to today, there's like 3 major parts in those few years. So we have the crash, the boom, and normalization. Let's start with the crash. It's 2020, and I know we don't like to talk about COVID too much, we're done that, but it's important. So, we're in 2020, it's March, the world shuts down, the economy sucks, people are losing their jobs. Well, buyers are feeling hesitant about buying houses. So there aren't really a lot of people buying homes. And that means not a lot of houses are selling either. So the economy, there's not a lot of activity, and it stays this way until about the end of 2021. Then what the banks decide to do is make the interest rates real low, between 1 and 2%. So buyers are feeling a little more confident to go out and buy houses. More people can go out and afford bigger homes. And that's what they're doing. The economy's doing a bit better. People are feeling more confident. More houses are selling. And now we reach 2022. So now we're in 2022 and we get the boom. What this means is there were so many buyers that were looking for a house. Finally, they had more confidence. But the problem was there weren't that many houses on the market. So now if you're a buyer, you're competing against a dozen other people for that same house. So the sellers could ask whatever they wanted for their house because, there were so many people looking at your property. The difference between a seller's market and a buyer's market is who has the power. In a seller's market, the sellers have all the power. There aren't that many people selling their homes, so you can ask whatever you want for the house. Buyer's market, there's a limited amount of buyers, but tons of properties, so they have more negotiating power. So we're in a seller's market right now. The other thing that was happening is there was a lot of people coming into Calgary and Alberta, not just from other countries, from Ontario and BC, because the prices were relatively cheaper. So now we're in this point where, house prices are super high, and what they do is the banks take those interest rates, raise them a little bit to kind of stabilize the house prices. Now, for example, if we were looking at a house in 2023 that was around $500,000, in 2024, just a year later, it was estimated that that same house was going to be $580,000. So that just shows you how crazy it was in this time. So now we're in 2025 and we finally hit that third stage, normalization. So essentially what's happening is the world's becoming more normal. It's more balanced. It's not a seller's market anymore. It's a balanced market. So the buyers have way more negotiating power. They can, go to a home and offer less than those extreme prices that we saw the year before or the year before that. So it's much better. We're also seeing not quite as many people coming in from Ontario and BC at this point, and interest rates are a little higher to keep that nice stable price for homes. So we've looked at the last 5-6 years, we looked at the last year. Now let's look at March, the last month or so. So we're seeing that the average or benchmark price of a home is about $550,000. The interest rate is about 4%, so it has come up in the last few years, but house prices are stable. And we're seeing that there's a lot more properties on the market than there was even in 2025, or much more than there was in the years before that, which is great for buyers. They have more negotiating power. They can go and, negotiate on a price of a home rather than competing with 10 other people. And we are still seeing some newcomers coming into the city, but not quite as much as we saw in the previous years too. Well, if you have any questions about any of this video, or if you want me to go further back in time, just let me know. I'm Robert the Realtor. We'll see you in the next one.